Good evening and welcome. I am Azazel, and tonight we'll be continuing our Ghostly Japan story series. Tonight's story is an original work of mine that is heavily inspired by a rash of reports made throughout Japan from 1989 to 1990 concerning the Jinmenken, human-faced dogs. These reports were initially spread through tabloids, magazines, and other such periodicals, but became especially popular among elementary and junior high school aged children, who kept the legend alive long after the reports vanished from the newsstand. This was not Japan's first encounter with such creatures. Dogs with human faces were reported to have been seen in the Edo area at various points in the Edo period. There was even a peculiar Edo-era theory that claimed that such creatures were the consequences of a folk belief that men suffering from syphilis could be cured by having sex with a dog. In any event, stories of these creatures largely faded from popular culture in the modern era, that is, until their bizarre return in 1989. The cause and nature of the modern incarnation of this old yokai are still disputed. There are some who claim they are escaped bioweapons, government experiments, or mutants. Others prefer a more supernatural explanation, claiming they are a combined spirit of a man and a dog who were struck and killed by a car while out for a walk. A more skeptical explanation is that the story was deliberately planted as an experiment by university researchers to study how urban legends spread in Japan, or simply just a fabricated story to generate tabloid sales. It should also be pointed out that Jinmenken also were featured as characters in a couple of manga and films in the years leading up to the 1989 reports. Whatever the case is, the modern sightings are a strange and sometimes slightly humorous addition to the body of modern Japanese urban legends. Without further ado, proper customer service. I work the overnight shift at a major chain convenience store. You've almost certainly been to one of them. You know, the one with the smiling logo? Yeah, that one. Usually on any given night, there's three of us working. The overnight shift manager, Mr. Shimada, another employee, Mr. Hata, and myself. Mr. Shimada is okay, I guess. For the most part, he leaves Hata and I alone, as long as we get our duties, which consists largely of restocking the shelves done before the morning rush hour crowd starts to appear. Sometimes, though, Mr. Shimada gets on Hata and me for not providing, as he says, proper customer service when the odd customer strolls in during the middle of the night. He wants us to not only greet the customer as soon as they enter the store, which can be hard if you're away from the front of the store restocking the shelves, but always maintain, as he says, a proper and cheerful demeanor when speaking with customers. He can get pretty nitpicky with making sure we bow at the exact right proper angle after ringing up a customer and thanking the customer for shopping with us too. You can be sure he'll pull you aside to provide correction after the customer has left. It's a major pain. Luckily for us, not too many customers come in after midnight at our store, so this issue isn't as big a deal as it could be, but it sure is annoying when it does happen. On the balance, working the overnight shift has been okay, or it had been until this week, when we started having some problems at the store. The first indication of the trouble to come happened on Monday. It was around 2 in the morning. The three of us were busy restocking the shelves, trying to get done before the morning rush, when a customer came in and told us that there was trash strewn all over the parking lot in front of the store. We all stopped to go out and see, and sure enough, it looked like an animal had gotten into the garbage bins out front. There was no indication of what animal had done this. Shimada apologized to the customer for the mess while Hata and myself cleaned it up. Afterwards, Shimada gave both Hata and I quite the lecture on making sure to properly secure the lids to the garbage bin. Then on Tuesday at around the same time, a middle-aged salaryman stumbled in. Right away, we could tell he was trouble. He reeked of alcohol, and he walked straight up to the register. I was the closest, so I walked over and I greeted him. He immediately ripped into me. "Hey, what kind of store you guys running? Filthy. Trash everywhere." I glanced around the store. Other than some boxes that were in the aisles temporarily due to us restocking, the store wasn't dirty. Even though I didn't know what he meant, I apologized for the inconvenience and explained we were in the process of restocking the shelves. The man cut me off. "You idiot. I mean outside." I looked out the windows and saw what he was referring to. I could see in the parking lot a couple of trash bags ripped open, refuse littering the parking lot. Whatever had gotten into the trash the night before was apparently back. I said sorry, then explained to the man that this had happened the night before too, and I promised that we'd clean it up right away. Good, the drunkard replied, then began to lumber away from the register and out the door, but then paused to impart one more pearl of wisdom. Your dog was really rude. He called me an impotent asshole and then ran away. I hadn't the slightest clue what he was talking about, but since he was already walking away, I just bowed deeply and apologized again. After he left, I went outside to investigate. Sure enough, there was our trash bags ripped open by some animal. A dog, if the drunk salaryman was to be believed. Shimada came out. He had apparently been watching the whole exchange. His face was red. He berated me for how I handled the exchange, admonishing me for not properly apologizing, and then went on another lengthy lecture on the importance of customer service while I cleaned up. I didn't argue with him. The next night, Wednesday, around the same time, a woman came into the store looking very pale and confused. I looked up from stocking the bread aisle and greeted her. She locked her eyes on me for a moment. I thought she was about to say something, but then she walked over to the magazine aisle. I shrugged it off and went back to stocking. A few minutes later, she was in front of me. She shoved a tabloid into my hands and opened the magazine to an article titled, "Dog with Human Face Chases Car and Causes a Traffic Accident. Terrified Driver Tells All." The woman asked me if I was familiar with this story. I was very confused, but apologized and said I was not. I wasn't one for tabloids and such. I see. Well, I know this may sound strange, but I just saw a creature just like this right outside your store. It was rooting through your garbage. She paused. It talked. It told me to stop looking at it, but I couldn't help it. It was a talking dog with a man's face. That's not normal. When I didn't look away, it started insulting me. It called me fat, ugly, and unfashionable. Then it ran away. I didn't know what to say, but I could feel Shimada's eyes on the back of my head. I didn't smell any alcohol on her. She didn't seem like a crazy lady at first. I tried to think of what I could say, but all I could muster was, "I'm very sorry you had this experience at our store," and gave a deep bow. Perhaps realizing how crazy she sounded, she mumbled something about not wanting to be a bother and just wanting to let us know, and then she walked away quickly. Shimada still gave me a lecture on making sure to keep the garbage bins secured and cleaned. Thursday, we had the same problem again. It was really bothering Shimada. Friday night, Shimada decided we needed to catch our garbage prowler in the act. He ordered me to stay by the front of the windows and keep watch all shift. As soon as I saw or heard our prowler, I was to go out and scare it off. Like clockwork, right around 2 a.m, I heard a rustling outside by the garbage bins. I immediately ran out to see, sure enough, the backside of a medium-sized dog. Its head buried in split-open trash bag it had dragged out of the bin. I clapped my hands at it and shouted at it to shoo. The dog jumped up from the garbage bag and ran away from me for a few meters before turning and shouting, "What in the world do you think you're doing?" I was stunned. It had the face of a human man, a middle-aged man. How would you like me clapping at you while you're in the middle of dinner, huh?" The man-faced dog asked. I was speechless. I was seeing it with my own eyes, but it was so absurd. "Are you dumb? Why don't you answer me? You are a human, right?" the man-dog asked me. I tried to answer, but no words came out of my mouth. I was still doubting what I was seeing in front of me. The dog shook its head with a disapproving grimace, then took advantage of my shock by darting towards the garbage bag and picking it up in its mouth as it ran off into the night, garbage falling out of the torn bag behind as it ran. I don't know how long I stood there staring into the darkness before Shimada came out yelling at me, upset that I had failed to stop our garbage prowlers. I tried to explain to him what I saw. He looked at me incredulously before asking if I was drunk. Saturday was my day off. Sunday, when I came in for my shift, the day shift manager pulled me aside and explained that Shimada had called in sick. Apparently, he had been bitten by a dog during his shift the night before and wasn't feeling well, so I was on my own for that night. Later that same night, again around 2 a.m., I heard rustling coming from the garbage bins outside. I hesitated, but then I decided I needed to see. I had still been doubting whether the encounter with the man dog on Friday had really happened or if I was going mad. As I cautiously walked out the front doors, I could see the lid to the garbage bin on the ground at my feet, and there were two dogs with their heads buried inside a torn garbage bag in the parking lot, busily chowing down. I couldn't tell if they were normal dogs or those weird man dogs yet, but I had to know. I picked up the garbage bin lid and chucked it at the dogs. It bounced on the asphalt of the parking lot next to the two dogs, startling them terribly. Their heads shot up and stared angrily in my direction. They were man-faced dogs. One was the same dog as the night before. The other, whose face my eyes were immediately glued to, had Shimada's face. "This loser again," the original man dog exclaimed. "What's the idea with throwing the lid? Someone could get hurt," the Shimada dog growled. "Don't bother. It looks human, but it doesn't speak. I think this one is dumb," the original commented to the Shimada dog. The Shimada dog snorted at the original man dog, then turned back to me. "No, he can speak. He just has no manners." "Is this how you treat your customers?" the Shimada dog barked. I was stunned. Looking to the face of my boss on a dog's body, I couldn't find the words. I looked around for anybody else to turn to for help, but there was no one, just myself and these two impossible creatures in the parking lot. "Answer me!" the Shimada dog barked again, annoyed. I'm very sorry you had this experience at our store," I answered, as I gave a deep bow. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel for more such videos. Thanks again, and see you in the next installment of Ghostly Japan.